Hello, everyone. Many thanks for joining us today. Whilst we're waiting for others to come online, and thanks for registering, getting through those hoops for us, I'd like to introduce us and our speakers for this afternoon's seminar. As you may know, I'm Natasha Grist, and I'm here co-hosting with my colleague Matt Heaton from the Norwich Institute for Sustainable Development. If you don't know us, we work across all the institutes of the Norwich Research Park, including UEA, and we bring together researchers from different disciplinary backgrounds and applied partners in this region and across the world on issues of sustainable food and farming. So we work locally as well as internationally on a really diverse range of projects and programs. We've been going, this is our 5th year now for the Norwich Institute for Sustainable Development, and one of the areas that has come up increasingly over the years for us, and questions and people asking a lot, is around tools and techniques of how we can gather evidence and data in order to create baselines and do monitoring and evaluation of changes in agri-food systems as part of a strategy process, understanding the impact of investments that are made and projects that are run, but also thinking about what we need to do in the future. So today we are really delighted to be hosting Beatriz de la Iglesia and Michal Mackiewicz from the School of Computing Sciences here at UEA. They've both led really significant applied research over the years on food, farming and fisheries, working with diverse academic and industry teams. Beatriz is Professor of Data Science and Head of School, and Michal is Professor of Computer Vision. Beatriz has been working on agri-tech applications of her expertise, including using crop images to quantify yields and on more specific applications in the area. And Michal has led diverse state-of-the-art environmental, biodiversity and agri-tech monitoring projects. But they've really kindly agreed today to take us on a tour of the kinds of work that they do and open a discussion and food for thought for us as researchers and industry practitioners about how these skills and tools might enhance and improve our work. So I'll hand over to them now. We expect the presentation to last sort of 40-45 minutes. Please do introduce yourselves if you wish in the chat and add any reflections and questions you've got so that we can open this up for questions and answers at the end. So thank you so much. And Michal, hopefully you'll be able to share your screen with us.
Oh, I think, it is not shared.
It is, yes.
Oh, it is already, yes. I just have, I've got the list up rather than the screen. So go ahead. Fantastic. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, thank you for this kind introduction. And I think Beatriz, you are starting, yes?
Yes. So I have the easier part of introducing the School of Computing Sciences, which is a great school, and we do a lot of different work on different areas. As Natasha kindly said, I have worked in agrotech before, and I do a lot of data science, data analysis, but Michal is going to get the job of presenting most of the research to you to make it more continuous. So if we go to the first slide, Michal, and we look at what we're going to do. So we're going to talk about our research to give you a kind of like an overview of what we do in computing sciences, because you might be able to touch base with us on a number of different projects. Also, we're going to talk about the color imaging pipeline for apple orchard survey. So that's one specific project that Michal is going to introduce, and also his project of computer vision for fisheries monitoring applications. And then he's going to look at all of the projects that our PhD students have done as part of the Agriforwards. So this was a CDT that we had in conjunction with Lincoln and with Cambridge, and this was very focused on agri-tech. So a lot of the work has been enabled by this particular CDT. So if we go to the next slide. So the kind of work that we do in computing science is very varied and very applied and very multidisciplinary. And we're always very happy to work with other people and for people to contact us to understand how we might work in collaboration. So we have a visual computing and signal processing lab, And as part of that, they do all sorts of really cool things, including, for example, interactive docking software for molecules, which they use. They has an application in pharmacology. They also do 3D visualizations and kind of modeling. And as part of that, they are now working with the National Trust. There is kind of like aiding surgery with various kind of like machine learning in conjunction with the X-ray imaging and so on, trying to guide surgery. So there's a lot of interesting work in that group. We also have a cyber intelligence and networks group. So that is looking at all the security of data, of communication of data. And that's also a really important part of everything that we do these days, because quite often there is IoT devices collecting and sending information, and the IoT and the cyber security that is very important as well. We have a very group health technologies, where we work on medical projects. And it can be machine learning projects, but also, for example, we are about to start a new funded project on a childbirth digital twin, looking at the safety of childbirth, and there are many other projects in that area. We have the color and imaging lab that is world leading, and this is a lot of the work that you're going to hear today comes from this lab, so you'll hear a lot more. We have computational biology, which was with the NRP, solving all of these problems that involve biological data, phylogenetics, etc. And we also have the data science and AI lab, of which I am the group leader. And we work there with all sorts of like AI application, data science, kind of like looking at data and so on. So that is the school, a lot of cross-collaborative, cross-disciplinary work, and we hope that you reach out to us. Michal will now give you a view of all of the projects that are in the agrotech area, particularly as part of the CTT that we were involved in.
Michal, you're not unmuted at the moment, so we can't hear you.
Interesting. Oh, hello.
Just go back a bit to the beginning.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, I don't know. Okay, I must have pressed it. Okay, so yes, so I will continue. So once again, I'm Michal Mackiewicz. I'm professor of computer vision, and I come from the color and imaging lab. So you will hear quite a lot of about projects from this lab. Okay, so let's go to interesting how this works. Okay, so yes, the first point of my talk is the project that was sponsored by ARA and a startup company from Cambridge called Outfield. And it was about conducting apple orchard surveys, and it had to do with colors of apples. So understanding something about color information of apples in those images. Okay, so this is what Outfield does. They fly this type of drone over apple orchards, and this is how typical images look like. So we have rows of apple trees, and you can see nice apples. And color can be used as an indicator of a number of things happening with an apple. Viability, how ripe the apple is. So the question is, are those values contained in a pixel really indicative of a real color, right? Of an absolute measure of color. Yes, and this project was aimed at answering this question. So yes, so we are really asking ourselves this question: do image pixels convey some useful information about real colors of fruits? And if not, if there is a problem, what can we do to make them do so? Okay, so you can see those nice images of apples. They are definitely colorful, but is this really the color of an apple? This is what we are asking ourselves, and it is a very relevant question for all sorts of applications in agri-tech and obviously beyond. Okay, and understanding image formation is really bread and butter of all of well, most of our projects in color and imaging lab. So physics of image formation and its understanding is important. So I will just give you a sort of a brief, very brief introduction to this. So okay, so an image arises as an interaction of three spectral quantities. And this is illumination spectrum. Yeah, so we have wavelengths of light. This is visible spectrum, and we have our light, which has this shape of its spectrum. Then we have objects, and objects can be described by another spectral quantity, which is surface reflectance function. Yes, it is again a spectral function at the same domain. Over the same domain of visual spectrum. Yes, so E of lambda, S of lambda, and obviously light interacts with a surface, is reflected, and then what is reflected is another spectrum, and a light of with another spectrum, which can be modeled as a wavelength by wavelength multiplication of these two, right? And this light will reach a camera. And in camera, we have another spectral quantity, which is, and actually three of them. And these are wavelength selective sensors, right? So there are always three sensors, well, usually three sensors. And this is to mimic the three-dimensional color nature of human visual system. And they would be called, you know, R, G, and B. And they would be sensitive to different wavelengths of the light C of lambda entering the camera. Okay, and the equation, you know, for a pixel in your image is essentially a wavelength by wavelength multiplication of E of lambda, S of lambda, and one of those, either R of lambda, G of lambda, or B of lambda, and then integrated. That is essentially an area under the curve of the, you know, spectrum resulting from those two multiplications. Okay, and these are your pixels. So you can see in a pixel lots of information about, you know, the shape of this spectrum was, and this one, and also these, was lost because it is just one number, and we have three of them in each pixel, RGB. And this is somehow related to the shape of our cones in our retina. So the cones can be represented by those human color matching functions, X, Y, Z. You can see that there are also three of them, but the shape is different. So there is some mismatch between cameras and a human visual system, and this needs to be corrected. And we would be doing this in a color correction step. Yes, and one of the big problems in color imaging is also somehow discounting the effect of the illuminant. Yes, because when we are doing imaging of apples, for example, what we are interested in is the color of an object, right? That has something to do with surface reflectance, but it shouldn't have anything to do with illumination spectrum. But this information obviously about illumination spectrum got into here, and it is sort of mixed with our S of lambda, which we are interested. Okay, so yeah, so two main problems, and I will be talking about them. White balancing, that is discounting the effect of the light, and also color correction, that is making those sensor responses related to the human visual system, and how we represent colors as an absolute measurement. Okay, and you probably know that cameras can record. You played with your camera settings, and so you know that cameras can record images in RAW or JPEG format, and RAW is something that is closer to the camera, something more raw, unprocessed. And the path from RAW to JPEG is very, very long. There are all sorts of steps. And those steps, they are not necessarily related to physics and or even preserving the absolute the measurement of color, in absolute terms, but they are to some extent designed to make images more appealing. Yes, so often when we want to measure color, we need to go to raw images, and we need to deal with those steps. And the most important one is here, and it comprises these two steps, which I already hinted, which is sort of white balancing, that is discounting the influence of an illumination, and also this color space conversion or color correction that maps our device dependent RGBs into this human color space. Okay, and you can see how images would change as they go through those stages. So they drastically change. At the end, you have your final image, which is nice, but this is how your raw image would look like. And those operations that we are interested in, they need to be done somewhere in between before we get to the end, before we have the JPEG, because then often it is too late. The image was so manipulated that we cannot do this. Okay, so color correction is the first step, and how we do this? Okay, we are trying to map our pixels captured by a drone to this device independent color space, and we do this by performing those measurements in a lab of color checkers. So this can be done in a lab, and we've done some experiments with two color checkers, different lights, and yes, our findings were that factory color calibration was the same for both drones we measured, but also inaccurate, which is important, which was an important finding, and this required recalibration. And yes, although those two drones were very similar, ideally we would like to calibrate each drone separately. But how do we do this effectively? Could this be done by a farmer in a field? So we did some experiments also in a field with only one simpler color checker, and we confirmed that this can be done quickly, in a field, and the results are only slightly of this color calibration. The results of this calibration are only slightly less accurate than in the lab method. So this was color correction. Now we are going to illuminant estimation. Okay, so what is this? Illuminant estimation, this is with cameras also called white balancing or machine color constancy. The aim is to mimic our human color constancy. And so we as humans, we have this ability to discount the effect of the color, and this happens in our brain. This is a very powerful ability, and we don't realize how powerful it is because our brain is so good at it. Okay, sometimes it fails. It fails if you go to a room with very unnatural lights. Then obviously, the effect of illumination cannot be discounted. But usually under natural daylight, although the color of the light changes, our brain is very good in sort of discounting this. So cameras, they don't have this ability. They need an algorithm to do this, right? The algorithm that we as humans, we have in our brain. And this algorithm needs to estimate the illuminant, estimate the color of an illuminant, which we assume is the same across the scene, which is not true, but we can assume this. So we are estimating an RGB triplet. There would be many illumination estimation algorithms. Once an illuminant is estimated, it can be discounted by dividing it out from pixel values, and we measure this error with those angular error, and you can see, the difference of 2 degrees is sort of noticeable but very small, but the difference of 8 degrees on this image, clearly you can perceive this as a big difference. So these are the kind of errors of point balancing. So, okay. So now the question is, for orchard surveys, we can what is happening here? The drone has its automatic white balance algorithm, but as shown in this image, and you can notice this, it is not very good. We place those white patches in those scenes, and you can see that those white patches, they were not corrected to white by automatic white balance. Well, maybe this one is close, but certainly not this. So automatic white balance makes mistakes, and these are the patches we extracted from all the images we have taken, and you can see the kind of errors the built-in algorithm in a drone makes. And so this is not good, because those errors, they will systematically shift the color of a fruit as well. Yes, so we want to correct for this. And yes, we adapted one of the existing algorithms specifically for those sort of greenish scenes that can be found in orchards. And the results are that we were able to, to reduce this error very significantly, from something like 4 degrees to, half of the degree. And you can see this also in this graph where we show, okay, the x's are the real measurements of an illuminant. The squares are the estimates of a drone built-in automatic white balance algorithm, and the circles are the estimates, our estimates of our algorithm. So you can see we are much better. We are much closer to the truth. And this allows us, together with the color correction step, this allows us to, well, create a pipeline that allows analysis of the color of the fruit in absolute terms, right? Then the color of the fruit is its real color, if you do it that way. Okay, so now we are moving to the next application, and so I've been involved in quite a number of computer vision projects related to monitoring of fisheries, and there are two streams of those, and the first one has to do with automated bycatch quantification. So you can see this depicted in the right image, and the second one has to do with web tools that allow computer science, let's say biologists who are not computer science experts, to interact with this technology, that is to create their own data sets, train their own models, and execute their own models on the data they are interested in. So it makes those tools more accessible to people who don't know how to code AI models, computer vision solutions, and so on. So what is Catch Monitor? Catch Monitor, it processes surveillance footage of from onboard conveyor belts, and this uses some state-of-art computer vision and AI. And it is built on some prior work funded by Marine Scotland Science, and it's been a part of two big EU Horizon projects. The first one was called Smartfish, which ended in 2021, but it continues as Every Fish. So these are really big projects, and Catch Monitor is only a small part of those projects. But this is the sort of UEA part. It is it is a collaboration between us, Marine Scotland, CIFAS, but also a Danish company called Anchor Lab. So the method here is that, okay, so this is a frame from a footage. First, fish are detected and the outlines are estimated. And so it is a segmentation step. In order to get here, we need to have this training set. So we created this annotation tool that allows expert marine scientists to to give us the fish outlines, but also provide us with fish species labels. Then, as we move from frame to frame, we track fish. And then those fish which reached the end of the conveyor belt, right? That would be the bycatch, which is returned to the sea. It is dead fish that is wasted. So, and this is what we really want to quantify. And those tracks then they are then analyzed again and classified so that we know the species of fish which was just discarded. Okay, so we have tested this in the context of inter-observer variability, how it compares to humans, and we concluded that the system can work at the lower end of human observer ability, but we are working on improving this algorithm, and this is also being implemented in sort of more proprietary remote electronic monitoring software of our industrial partner in Everyfish, that is Anchor Lab. And there are also other flavors of this algorithm we are developing, so something similar but for fish baskets. So here we would like to estimate the quantity of fish in a basket just from an image, and possibly predict the weight of fish in a basket. Okay, and the second stream of this fisheries research is those tools that allow non-computer science experts to create and deploy their own machine learning models. And so we developed this and aimed it at fisheries management or environmental monitoring, but it is a general application that can be used as a tool. If you have a object detection, tracking, and counting in a video problem, you could use this tool. So, and this was part of 2 consultancy projects which happened in 2021, 2022, and the second one is still ongoing. So what happens is, okay, we call it AVIMS, and there is a work pipeline which we implemented into a web application, and it is quite intuitive, and it allows those non-computer science experts to go through those sort of easy steps and do pretty much everything they need to do if they have the data and they want to have some decisions from an automated system, from AI. Yes, that is upload videos, define classes like in the image on top, select frame for annotations, annotate those frames, then create data sets, that is split the data into training and validation sets, train models, check the error on those models, and finally, the most important one, analyze the new data, which is really the reason why they are doing all this. Okay, so we have deployed the working system for the clients in Marine Scotland Science, and also we are doing this for Fisheries Management Scotland currently. Yeah, and this second one is specifically for in-river fish counters. Some credits for people who contributed to all this, stream for those 2 streams of work. Yes, and now, yes. So this is the final point. And it's an introduction to a number of PhD projects, which are part of Agriforwards Centre for Doctoral Training. So this is this CDT is a collaboration between University of Lincoln, University of Cambridge, and UEA. It is still ongoing. The last cohort is in the first year, so the recruitment is over, but only very few students have finished, and so yeah, the pipeline is full in a way. Okay, and it is about agri-tech and robotics. Okay, so some PhD projects. So we will have I don't know, maybe about 10 of them, and there will be 1 or 2 slides for each. And the first project is actually Harry Rogers' project has been done under Beatriz's supervision. So Beatriz knows more than what I will say, but it has to do with estimating the amount of spray on plants in a field. So and quantifying the amount of spray. And this was a collaboration with Syngenta. And you can see, well, essentially it is a computer vision project. There is, segmentation of plants, of weeds, classification of different weeds, and also, estimating just from images how effective was spraying and quantifying this. So from the point of view of sustainability, it is a very, very interesting project, because obviously the final aim would be to use it to minimize spraying and minimize the use of pesticides. Yes, and this was very, very successful, because it turned out that just from an image you can estimate whether a plant was sprayed and how much. Okay. And this is also related to, so in this project, Harry used some explainable AI that is, we would like to treat those models not just as black boxes, but understand something, why AI is making certain decisions. And this kind of approach, allowed Harry to quantify this better. And in the right image, there is another project Beatriz has done. This was another PhD student before the CDT. It was a collaboration with the Elam Institute, and it had to do with observation of wheat growing in real world images in a field, and quantification of the yield, and you can see some intermediate steps that allow you to do this. So again, this was computer vision, segmentation, detection of spikelets, individual grains, counting them, and yes, this was that. Another project, and this one is supervised by Graham Finlayson from the Color and Imaging Lab, and carried out by Afsane Karami, who is in her third year maybe, or second year, has to do with dealing with highlights in some environmental monitoring and agricultural images. So highlights are a nuisance, and shadows as well. And I will talk about shadows later. And we would like to get rid of them. And Afsane and Graham, they are building on this very famous Retinex algorithm, which had many different dozens of iterations over the years since 1970s. It was actually developed by a really amazing person, amazing scientist who was also a founder of a Polaroid. So it is an algorithm that is really important in image processing community. Yes, but the idea is to have this as a pre-processing step for whatever we do next. Yes, and it is quite mathematical, and I will not go into details of that, but essentially they developed a very nice framework which unified a number of computational approaches, those three different approaches based on gradient analysis, centers around filtering, and also path-based methods, into one framework which is more related to the human visual system. It is faster. It requires smaller number of iterations. It has fewer artifacts. So yeah, this is an ongoing project. Another project under supervision of Graham, is carried out by James Bennett, and he collaborates with a company from Chelmsford called Antobot. They manufacture those robots, and James is helping on the vision side here. So yes, so those robots, they transport fruits around. They perform some UV treatment of crops. They monitor fruit, and yes, and James is now working part-time also for them. He's in his final year, and he's working on improving the vision, and he does this through tone mapping. Tone mapping is one of those camera processing pipeline steps, of those many steps which I showed you at the beginning of my talk. So this is an input image on the left, and on the right is an output image. Yes, so it has to do with bringing up detail from shadows, compressing highlights somehow. How do we do this in a automatic and most optimal way? So this is the kind of computer science research James and Graham are working on in this project. Another project has similar aims as the one that when I mentioned highlights. So here it is more about shadows. So shadows often hide information that is important for from the point of view of further processing, and this is important for image-based land surveys. It is important for agri-tech, and Sean is working on those methods. This is also supervised by Graham Finlayson, and he's working on those physics-based methods that would allow, hopefully, he hopes in his research he will be able to beat, well, what you can see in the top video, where some machine learning methods, so learning-based methods, they still leave some artifacts of shadows, so which is not ideal, but hopefully if you look more closely at the physics of the scene, apply some physics-based method like the one presented here, you may be able to remove shadows without those artifacts. Okay, let's move to the next one. Okay, the next project is a robotics project, actually. So it is no longer vision. All the previous projects were computer vision AI projects. This is a robotics project, and this is about urban hydroponic horticulture. So hydroponic, as far as I can understand, this is growing plants without soil, and Andrew Simpson, a PhD student at UEA, works on this under supervision of Professor Richard Harvey here at UEA and Dr. Charles Fox from Lincoln. So he is building this, he is building the actual thing, and his aim is to to produce those open source robotic solutions that could be really upscaled and used widely, and obviously this is very, very important also from the point of view of sustainability, because you can grow plants without soil here. Okay. The next project is, well, this is again about fisheries as well, somewhat related to marine applications, not necessarily fisheries, but done under my supervision. Masvedas Kudelis is the PhD student working on this, and it is a collaboration with British Antarctic Survey. They go to those annual cruises to Antarctic, and they collect samples and they take images of very large quantities of Antarctic krill, which are immensely important from the point of view of the ecosystem. And they would like to understand more about, population. And this involves understanding the maturity stage of those individuals. There are 11 stages, and also, measuring them. So yes, it is a computer vision project where we would like to automatically classify images like the one on top. Well, first segment krill individuals, then classify them into those maturity stages, and estimate length from the images. And you can see that this can be done. So these are the classification results. And there are obviously some misclassifications, but usually they are related to those classes which are very close together in terms of development, and some of those differences between certain classes actually they can be only identified using a microscope. So it is not clear whether this can be done perfectly from images. It is unlikely, but we still managed to do a very, very good job on that. And now I think I have 2 or 3 projects which are in the sort of earliest stages. These are the students who just started. And one of them is again about apple orchards. So somewhat related to what I presented first, but here we will go into a different mode of imaging. We would like to use hyperspectral and multispectral, and ideally later multispectral cameras to improve some of the measurements of apples. Well, that can be done. With RGB, but needs to be improved. So again, it's computer vision, some machine learning, but here the use of hyperspectral imaging during research, and ultimately probably multispectral imaging at the end will be important. Another project which just started, this one is under supervision of Graham, and Violet Main is working on this. It is a collaboration with Living Optics, the company which produces hyperspectral cameras. So somewhat related to the previous one. It is also a collaboration with CIFAS, and the applications here would be again in sort of coastal surveying and agricultural surveying. Yeah, the aim here is to develop obviously a processing pipeline that can work with a hyperspectral camera in an effective way. And this is probably maybe the final project I would like to introduce, and this is quite different. This is telecommunications project. It is supervised by Dr. Edwin Wren from our department, and the PhD student carrying the work is Eden Attenborough. And it is to do with localization of a robot in an agricultural setting. So localization is quite difficult using current means. Global navigation, as satellite navigation is not very accurate. Some sensor-based localization, well, in a field it often relies on those very soft features which sort of change shape and so on. There are not too many fixed objects like in an urban scene. So sensor-based localization with RGB imaging, with LiDAR imaging, relying on some odometry is quite imperfect. And the idea here is to fuse those modalities together, but also supplement them with a private 4 or 5G network. which could be deployed quickly in an agricultural setting and would allow robot together with those other sensors to be localized more precisely. And yes, so the student is working on those algorithms that are fusing this 4G, 5G based localization, which is based on the on the time of flight, on the phase of an angle between the antenna of this private network and the receiver, and on the fusion of those results with some other sensors like LiDAR and also like the global satellite navigation. Okay, and I think this was the last project. Yes, so 12:45. Okay, I hope I'm on time. Thank you
so much, Michal, and your timing is perfect as well. You've taken us through that a really interesting set of projects and really diverse. I mean, some of them are obviously linked, the Apples projects and so on. I'll wait and see if people will type some questions in the chat, and I know that we've got a couple from Matt, but just as a starting point, kind of, can you just tell us a little bit about how these projects get developed and thought up? Are these usually a response from an industry request? I mean, they look quite kind of discrete, most of them, apart from the ones that are clearly linked. Or is this kind of your research is taking you through to develop the next stage of your
yes.
current work?
Well, ideally those industrial projects, I think they work best if there is a clear problem that is sort of identified early and presented to us with a question. Okay, can you help? And if this is with our in our expertise, and we usually look at the data. You notice lots of those projects are computer vision projects. This is where most of our expertise in computer vision, data science, AI. This is where most of our expertise is in the School of Computing Sciences. So what we would do, well, when we establish a contact, we would usually look at some data, sample of the data. It is always good to see this problem in images to gauge the level of difficulty in the context of our expertise, what can be done in terms of automatic processing. So often these projects they start like that. Okay, when you have a CDT, well, you need to think to find projects for a cohort of a certain size, and you need to be more proactive. So with finding industry partners, but ideally it is best if it works, the same way. That industry is telling us what is the problem, not we tell them what is the problem and what you should do, right? It's yeah. So yes, we also collaborate with partners at NRP. So some of those projects were collaborations with the Elam Institute. Beatriz worked with Elam Institute, or some other institute across East Anglia, for example, NIAP in Cambridge. So yeah, and local companies, Cambridge, Chelmsford, elsewhere, usually close by.
Thank you. I want to hand over to Matt. You have a couple of questions, I think.
Yeah, I definitely have a question. Firstly, thank you very much. Really interesting to see the range of stuff's going on there. It's not my area, so it's quite interesting to learn some new things. Yeah, I guess it's been a really nice whistle-stop tour of everything that's going on. And so working through this sort of Agriforwards work, I just wondered where you feel, you've probably been having lots of conversations around these technologies and the potential and all this kind of stuff. I just wondered where you feel there might be some key opportunities or some key partnerships with computer science for sustainable food production systems that we perhaps aren't seeing at the moment. I don't know if there's any areas where you think this kind of work, maybe there's an opportunity that we could take advantage of.
Well, obviously there is a lot of there is a big push towards robotics, right? There are all sorts of problems with sustainability in agriculture, also from the point of view of labor scarcity, and so there is this push to robotics. So it is driven by shortage of labor, but also by the by the need for optimizing certain use of pesticides, for example. Yes, so this very very targeted management of a field is a big push, and Beatriz's project on analysis of and quantification of spray deposits is something in this department. Yes, in the School of Computing Sciences we have lots of expertise in imaging, in designing an imaging pipeline for a particular product. Maybe a bit less so with robotics. And yeah, that's why these are the kind of projects we are doing. I wonder what is another field. Maybe Beatriz wants to step in.
Yes, I think a lot of what we have come across in the past is, for example, I mean, in the context of climate change as well, trying to kind of like understand how yields are going to change, and connecting. You can have sensors, for example, that monitor things like humidity and temperature and sunlight and all of these things, and soil, and then try to understand how that is going to affect like a crop yield. And we've had conversations, for example, in the past with soft fruit growers, because they have a very small window of opportunity to kind of like pick things up before they go off if they were, and to deliver them. So it's a lot about predicting when things are going to be ready, and they have a specific, and not having food waste, because often they will have with supermarkets, for example, a need to, I don't know, supply a certain amount of strawberries for a particular something that they're going to do, and if they supply too many, that kind of is not good. If they supply too few, that is not good. If they come late or early, that is not good. So a lot of the agricultural thing is to do with prediction in varying circumstances. And also as in the project, for example, where we were working with Syngenta, there are all these European directives of pesticide management and how you reduce that. So one of the things that you need to do that is quantify it adequately. So the more that we have sensors, for example, in fields measuring real life conditions on a field, and the more we understand about how that affects a particular crop, I think the more maybe we can become more sustainable in food production. So those are, I think, big areas.
Yes,
thanks.
I agree with Beatriz, and I think there is definitely this push. It has to do with Internet of Things, of putting as much sensors as possible. Sometimes too many, more than you need at a given time, and maybe you don't have ideas what you will do with that data at the beginning, and collect as much data as possible, so that yes, you can process them later and make those decisions, or predictions.
Yeah. Another big call is coming from trying to understand land management and trying to look at how people that have vast bits of land to manage, and they can change the usage, trying to understand, how that land usage, if it changes, what are the implications for the future? Because sometimes they can use it for A, B, C, or D, including housing development, or keep it renaturing parts of the kind of their estate, and trying to understand the economic implications of that, and the wildlife implications of that. So a lot of that is also, and that is aided by things like drones, where you can like survey, things with drones and aerial images, and then trying to put that together with, for example, what happens if we change this field? What if we use more of this for this, more of that for that? Being able to build models that answer what if questions.
Yes, automation that utilizes drones, those aerial drones in particular, I think it will make very fast progress in the coming years. And it is well, maybe it may sound disturbing to some extent for some. This is to some extent driven by war, by the current war and all those developments people making with those technologies. But I think those aerial drones will become more and more autonomous. There will be swarms of drones kind of working together and algorithms controlling them, and they will become more and more useful. I think anything that is on the ground and needs to interact a lot more with all sorts of obstacles and unexpected sometimes things is more difficult. Yes, but robotization from the air, I think, yes, will make very fast progress in the near future. Is making.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have a question from Peter Koller at CFAS. He said, you've mentioned you've got a new project on apple orchards that are using infrared. Do you think there's more potential in other parts of the spectrum in monitoring the environment with AI and not just infrared, perhaps even UV?
Yes, well, yes. Hello, Peter. Yes, so we are yes discussing a potential project. So I don't know too many applications beyond a visible spectrum, but obviously there is this application, and we are thinking about this on, and I know that CFAS are working on this as well. On detection and classification of different types of plastic pollution from drone imagery. So this needs to go beyond the visible spectrum if you want to get a certain accuracy in terms of classification of different polymers and so on. But I think this has more to do still with the infrared, not the UV. So I'm not sure. Peter, do you have any ideas? You've asked this question, but you must have an idea, I think.
Oh, thanks. Hello, everyone. Thanks, Michal. Yeah, yes, we are. We're discussing with you with infrared, and I'm just kind of wondering what other environmental monitoring applications could benefit from that part of the spectrum, but also, are we thinking about other parts like potentially UV, monitoring at different times of the day? So not necessarily just in the day, but can you, is there possibilities of using UV sensors at night through strobing effect, that sort of thing? So
yes, so for night monitoring, usually you have infrared cameras for that, and there would be it is used quite widely in camera trap photography, that you have really registered RGB and infrared cameras switching the mode from day to night. Obviously, you have a slightly different image overnight. It is kind of one channel grayscale. So this is usually how it works. But well, UV in one of those projects, the UV is used as a treatment for plants. UV light. This is this Antobot robot James Bennett is working on. So this is not the focus of James's project, but we know that robots can when they monitor animal health, they can apply some treatment, and some of those treatments they have to do with with illumination of plants with UV light.
Interesting. Thanks, Michal.
Thank you so much. We've already got to the end of our seminar time. I know that we're actually just about to go into a broader, really interesting discussion around this. I had some questions around equity and investment, and the impacts of all of this use of AI and computing technologies. But I think we'll have to pick that up in a later discussion. Thank you both so much for joining, and